All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Larissa Assam, and I am the founder and CEO of Rophe Concierge Medicine. Today, I have the honor and the privilege to be joined by Dr. Jade. And there's so many amazing things about Dr. Jade. She wears so many different hats. But one of the things I specifically love about her story is that she's a pioneer. She's someone who had a dream, she had a vision, and she just went for it. And she did this regarding her private practice immediately after residency. And so I believe that there are so many things I'm about to learn from her, but equally for anyone who's listening, I'm certain that whatever business you have, I'm pretty sure that there's a lot that you can learn from Dr. Jade's story. So Dr. Jade, thank you so much for your time and for recording with me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Excited to share.
My pleasure. I think we could start with an introduction, if you don't mind, just telling everyone, and please don't hold anything back. Feel free to introduce yourself and let everyone know who they're listening to.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks for having me. So I'm Dr. Jade Norris. I just go by Dr. Jade. I'm a board certified family medicine physician. I'm a wellness and weight loss specialist. I'm certified in obesity medicine. I'm all about helping my patients reverse and prevent chronic disease and transitioning to a healthier lifestyle and a healthier weight. That's what we do here at Inspire Primary Care. We have a membership medical practice where I'm able to provide high quality care to our members here in Las Vegas, and excited to care for my hometown. I'm also a wife and a mommy of 2 little girls and a children's book author, and we have a nonprofit organization and a couple other businesses. So we have a lot going on. It's just a fun time and just really listening to what God has called me to do and walking in that. So I'm thankful.
Amen. Amen. Incredible. And just so inspiring, for I think everyone listening, I hope you recognize that surely your hands are full, Dr. Jade, but it can be done. Having multiple things on the table, it can be done in personal life and also in your professional life. Let's actually start with the name. How did you decide on the name of your practice?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't been asked that question yet, I don't think. And I was thinking and brainstorming with my husband on what will we call the practice, and different names came up. It's funny, I started out thinking I was going to call it WOW, like World of Wellness. So I started off I started off with World of Wellness. I just knew I wanted a wellness focused practice. And I knew the mission was to help my patients prevent and reverse chronic disease, transition to a healthier lifestyle and a healthier weight. And I was trying to think what represented that. And luckily for me, I looked it up and someone already had the name. And so WOW World of Wellness was already a clinic here in Las Vegas and in the direct primary care space. And so I kept brainstorming and I just asked God, what should we call it? And the word people in the time, I kept hearing back to back, wow, you're inspirational, you're an inspiration. And that kept coming up in different ways back to back to back during that season where I was brainstorming, and I had been asking God, what is the name that you want us to call it? And inspirational just kept coming up. And so I was like, okay, inspire. And then, but we didn't want it to look like everything else. If you just Google the word inspire. And because I like to go by Dr. Jade and not necessarily by Dr. Norris, for me, Dr. Norris is like the insurance-based doctor who hated drudging through 30 patients a day. Yes. So I just being called Dr. Norris, I just think of her as the insurance-based doctor who was struggling and dreading life in residency. So because I dropped Norris and just go by Dr. Jade, it was also a way to kind of honor my husband and my last name, which is Norris, by just starting it with the N of Inspire and dropping the I in the front. And it just gave it a different little twist that I liked. So yeah, that's how we came up with Inspire Primary Care. And although we add other things like weight management medicine, hormone medicine, we are adding on and things like that, the foundation will always be primary care. So I wanted that to be clear too in the verbiage.
I love that. And I think, seeing it, I love the name, and I'm sure others who are listening will agree, but I think hearing the story behind it, it just always adds another level, right? Another layer to it. And I'm very big on honor. And for you to do that, even just to pay honor to your husband, I absolutely love that. Love it. My pleasure. So let's go to the beginning. One of the things that's unique about your story is that you actually started your practice immediately after residency. And you've recorded previously, so I'm sure people can hear the details of the nuts and the bolts of what that looks like. But on a practical level, let's go back to right after residency graduation. Here you are, freshly graduated. I'm not sure if you were working part-time anywhere else immediately after residency. What did that look like? Those early days, let's say first 2 months immediately after residency.
Yeah, so my journey was a little different because I had two babies during my residency journey. So I had my first baby, Ava, my intern year, and then I graduated residency pregnant. And because I took about 2 months off for my maternity leave for my first baby, it pushed my graduation back. Instead of graduating around July, I graduated in September to make up that maternity time. So, and then I graduated in September, 9 months pregnant, and I was 8 months pregnant. I had a month before I was to deliver my second baby. So for me, I found out about direct primary care and membership medicine in my second year of residency, and my husband and I, we agreed it was the right fit for our lifestyle at that time. So my second and third year of residency were all about creating the business plan and the knowledge and how to create the LLC and the banking account. So we did all of that while I was a resident. So then from there, the plan was have the baby, take the amount of time I needed off for the second baby, and then open the practice, which timeline ended up being, I graduated in September. I basically took the holidays off, from September, had the baby in December. I had her right after Christmas, Christmas holiday. And I took 8 weeks off, and we did our ribbon cutting and opened our doors when she was 8 weeks old. So that's how it looked for us. So I really had a strategy and a plan and was trusting God's plan with all I was learning year 2 and 3 of residency. So then it was like, okay, little time, very little time, have the baby and let's open and let's do this. So, and then as far as if I had a job or not, so I did open the practice straight from residency, but part of our strategy to keep overhead low and to not have financial stress, my husband has his own career, so we have a 2-income household. But to just grow my ends of this, I did take a part-time urgent care position while the practice was growing, and so I just did per diem shifts. Here and there. I think I started off with 10 shifts per month, and then as the practice grew, I took away one shift at a time until the practice was able to match what the urgent care was paying me. And then it was just Inspire Primary Care from there. And it's been my baby, my third baby.
Wow, amazing. And props to you having the ribbon cutting 8 weeks. Well, actually, props to you for having babies, period, through residency, because that is no easy feat. And then on top of that, preparing even whilst being pregnant, whilst going through training, and then having your ribbon cutting at 8 weeks. Wow, incredible.
Yeah. Thank
incredible. You. Yes, it's not easy. So I think it's worth celebrating, to be honest. Now, looking back, by the time you had the ribbon cutting, what did your patient panel look like? Did you have a goal for how many people you wanted on a potential patient list? Had any people signed on already and made payments as members? What did that look like?
That's a great question. So yeah, I had big dreams, right? And what I thought it was gonna look like, once you're in the journey, it unfolds into a whole nother journey, which is beautiful and stressful and all the things. So how it looked for me is, while in September, when I graduated residency, I started a pre-enrollment. So I had about 3 months, 2 or 3 months of a pre-enrollment phase, and I called it like my pre-enrollment push, where I was spending that time educating my community about direct primary care and membership medicine in particular through my social media channels. So I was doing a lot of, what is direct primary care? What's the difference between an insurance-based practice versus a membership practice? Why aren't we going to take insurance? And so I was really preparing the community for this newer concept to most people. And so then I opened on my website a pre-enrollment form, like a sign-up form, just where I had their information So then once we were officially opened, we could reach out to them to enroll them. And so I had about 50 pre-enrollments on day one. And when I opened, I thought I wanted to practice. So the direct primary care community is very collegial. Like we all really bond together and share information. It's a great movement. And so a lot at the time, it was pretty typical for most practices for each doctor to have 500 to 600 patients per doctor. And so, or members. And so that's what I assumed would be the best fit for me when I opened. So I opened saying, we're going to take the first 600 members. And then as I began caring for people, spending an hour with my patients, you know, really giving them quality care, I realized, wow, to give this level of care for 600 members is more than I want to, you know, it's just more than what actually works for me. It looked good on paper, right? And so then the number slowly started dwindling. I was like, oh, we're going to take the first 400 patients. No, we're actually going to take the first 300 patients. And now that I'm in it, we've been doing this 2.5 years. I know that I'll max my patient panel around that 200 to 250 mark. And we're heading in that direction. We're approaching that. So yeah, so that's kind of the evolution of how patient number has looked. And as far as pre-enrollment, it was nice because, or it was funny. It wasn't funny at the time. It's funny to look back at, but 50 pre-enrolled. I was super excited about that. And I think 5 of them actually joined. And so I like to share that just so people don't get discouraged if you have
Yes.
people actually enroll, because a membership is a commitment, and membership models of medicine is a different way to approach things for a lot of people. And so it takes some time for the word of mouth to build up, for people to hear about how great of care you're providing, to try it out. And then from there, it kind of snowballs, and then people catch on and they realize like, hey, I don't want to miss out on that high quality care, and it takes off from there. But it takes time and patience. And for some people, they'll open and it'll like right away kind of blow up. And for others, it'll be a snowball effect that takes a little more time. So I'm thankful that it took a little more time for me. It really gave me time to perfect my system and to get good feedback from my members. And now we've got everything down to a science, and it's just on autopilot, and it's really just so rewarding.
I love that. Okay, just you this is I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because that's the reality. I think sometimes maybe people can feel a bit discouraged. I know I've had my moments, and I thank you, because offline you've certainly given me a lot of words of encouragement and wisdom, you know, through the journey already. But maybe even speaking, looking back in time on those days when maybe you felt a bit discouraged, did you ever have moments like, wait, what's going on? You know, I had 50 people pre-enrolled. I'm an excellent doctor. What's going on? How come people aren't coming on? How did you work through those thoughts, which would come up in your mind, if they came up at all?
Oh, definitely they come up. A combination of things. One, prayer.
Yeah.
Two, having a great community of people around you. So like my husband, my mom, my dad, my grandmother, like they're my tribe. They encourage me. So, you know, when I'd have those moments, they're right there to remind me of, you know, this is, for me, I'm a woman of faith, I'm a Christian. And so I know that this is what God called me to do. And just because he called me to do it doesn't mean it's going to be easy or that it's going to happen fast. But if he calls me to do it, it's going to work out and it's going to be successful. So just reminding myself of that truth has been helpful. And then also getting feedback, you know, getting feedback from people, you know, what are the barriers? You know, why haven't you enrolled? You say you really want this type of care. What is that looking like that's keeping you from enrolling? And then hearing that feedback and then making decisions on ways to pivot and ways to serve and solve the problems of those you're called to serve. And so all of that takes some time, typically, but not all the time. But those are some things I've been able to do, is really just stay connected in prayer, stay close to God, and my family's been amazing. And then also celebrating every single little win, like the fact that 5 people at that first time, the fact that 5 people trusted me with their care, celebrating that. And then I had something I was doing early on was every patient that joined, I would like stop and thank God for the new member. I would pray for that new member before I met them. Like as soon as I saw the enrollment come through. Another thing I did was every time we hit 10 new members, I would do some sort of celebration. So I would take myself out or go with my husband somewhere to like literally make a little celebration party of we 10 more new members. So just celebrating those wins along the way, looking at the Google reviews or the text messages from my patients where they're saying how I, have done something that really impacted their life positively, just
Wow.
rereading those. Those are just all little things that help me to celebrate along the journey and to remind me of the why.
Wow, I love that. I really love that. And really to speak a little more specifically to doctors, a lot of doctors, because I believe you had already published your books whilst you were in residency.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had some business exposure or experience even before starting your private practice, but I would imagine that for some doctors, maybe they've never had any business before, but they really do have a desire or a calling, right, to go into private practice. So I love what you're sharing because this is very realistic. The truth of the matter is business is not easy. And I
Yeah.
say this to people all the time.
Yeah.
But speaking specifically to physicians, I want to really highlight what you said about celebrating every win along the way, incorporating prayer, having great support. Is there anything else that you would kind of say specifically to other doctors who want to do this, but maybe are being hindered or discouraged in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, I think it's really having a quality strategy and structure and being okay with being flexible along the journey, but starting off with a good, solid plan that will, I don't know, I guess heighten the likelihood that it will just ease the stress for you in that early phase. So for me, it was like, how can I have a base pay and not be stressing about bringing new members on? How can I just be good? And then that way I can just really focus on the right fit members that I'm called to serve. Like for me in particular, I'm called to serve busy professionals, business owners, CEOs, busy moms, like people who are just really busy, that 30s to 50s and up, who just don't want to wait around a long time and they need high quality care, but they're juggling a lot of things like that. That's the population I'm called to serve. So I don't want to be so rushed and stressed and strapped that I have to pivot outside of that and say, okay, well, let me take this population or that population, or let me add on this service that I'm not even called to do. Let me drop my prices to this, even though my prices are worth that. I don't have any of that, and I can really just focus on the quality, the right fit, and being patient. So having the urgent care strategy for me was very important. And it also helped to keep the overhead low for the business. I tell people about the book, The Lean Startup, and the low overhead strategy has been amazing. The fact that our business is so low overhead now that we do have hundreds of members, having such a profitable business is just a blessing. And it's because we had because of God, but because we did the urgent care at the beginning to, have a set base. And then because we kept our overhead for our business so low and so lean and used automations, utilized a lean team, with time. So those strategies have really been things I can look back on and be thankful. Like I could have went and got a huge office space and took out a big bank loan and fully built out this huge office. But we chose to do a lean business and it's still very nice. It's beautiful. Our office is beautiful, but things are very inexpensive compared to what it could have been. And that's just put our business in a really profitable place where it's enjoyable and we're not worried about shutting down.
This is music to my ears. I love that book so much. The Lean
Yeah.
Startup. I strongly recommend it. Highly encourage it. If you're considering any business whatsoever, please read that book. Definitely recommend. And speaking of overhead, did you always know you wanted to have a clinic space, or did you ever consider even offering a virtual option?
Yeah, so I would say our office is unintentionally primarily virtual just because of the nature of my ideal patient being a busy professional, executive, business owner. they typically like to text, email, hop on phone or video. So most of the time I am virtual. However, my new patient appointments and pap smears procedures, those are times where I come in the office. Or unless I have a patient who just prefers in-office appointments, but typically my patients prefer follow-ups to be virtual unless it's really needed. So, but I always knew I wanted to have a space, a nice space that we could come to, because I do love women's care, especially pap smears. I do love procedures. I just finished doing a shoulder injection for a patient. And so to me, and I didn't want to go to people's homes, especially because I'm called to serve men and women. And safety wise, I'm not going to be going into people's homes, but yes, so that is why having a space, especially for PAPS, new patient appointments and procedures, was important, but it is primarily a virtual practice, just indirectly.
Yeah, wow. Okay, amazing. Amazing. And so looking back, we talked about the lean startup, we talked about keeping overhead low. Is there any other financial advice, and even having another revenue stream? Any other financial advice you would give to a young doctor who equally is interested in starting a direct primary care, private practice, or otherwise?
There's so much financial advice, but just like a wellness journey where you could tell people like, oh, just eat tofu and broccoli and work out 5 days a week. And, you could tell them all these things to do and it's overwhelming. And it's like, okay, now I ended up doing none of it. And I'm just going to sit on the couch and eat Oreos because you gave me 20 recommendations. And now I'm just like, no, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's similar when it comes to this is really, it's an elephant, but taking it just like one bite at a time, one step at a time. What is one thing you can do? What is one book you can read today or a podcast you can listen to today? What is one thing you can do? Is it getting your LLC today? Is it going to the bank today? Is it creating the business plan today? Is it going to a networking event or a lunch today? Like, what are just the small things you can do that can help you progress towards your ultimate goal? I always tell physicians that are doing direct primary care to connect to the community. We have private Facebook groups, going to the conferences, really learning from those around you, because the people ahead of you have already done it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can see who has done this successfully and then take and put your own style and flair on it that works for you and who you're called to serve in your community. So yeah, I'm all about being a sponge, learning as much as you can, and then wringing that sponge out, kind of letting go of the things that don't serve you as an individual, and then soaking up all the things that do apply. And just really the mindset is the biggest thing, like believing you can do it, having techniques and strategies for not getting discouraged along the journey, and pacing yourself. I'm still pacing myself.
Yeah, powerful. That's really good. And you're right. It really ends up becoming um everyone, because finances are personal, right? You end up having to kind of figure out what works best for your unique situation. But I think there are some general principles, like from day one, it's definitely a good idea to be mindful of your overhead.
Yep.
It's a good idea to learn how to budget. For me, I remember even when I started medical school, I didn't really know how to make a budget. That's something I had to learn. So that's actually a skill. So I would definitely add that too. And then looking back to the early days, is there anything that you would, now looking back, have done differently?
What I love about this is there really isn't a lot I would have done differently. And I have a lot of friends who started around the same time as me. And I would say that I did it the way I hoped I would do it. If I could do it all again, I would do it the same. I would have a low overhead business. I would really promote on social media because that's where we grow our practice, and that's where my ideal people are at. I would let me say there are a couple things I would do different. Now, it would just come down to the marketing aspect, because the reason I wouldn't do it different, the reason I started off saying I wouldn't do it different, is because when you open a business, you are going to have to take some risks on how you're going to market. Like, you're going to have to try some things out. You may lose some money. I have lost a lot of money on a lot of things when it came to marketing, because when you open your doors, everybody's going to come to you like, oh, put your name in this magazine, hire me, do this, do that. And you have to do what you think is the best thing to do in that in that moment with the information that you have, right? And so I tell people when it comes to marketing, like it's almost like throwing paint against the wall a little bit at first because you're trying different things to see what sticks. And then what I did from there is after I had some information over the first year, I figured out what are my top 3 ways that I successfully bring in new members that are my ideal fit. And then I stopped doing everything else and just
Mm.
went all in on those 3 things. But that took time to really figure out what that was. So that's why I say I wouldn't do anything different. But yeah, I would have loved to just known like the right way to market and the right way to find my people and, not have to lose money in the process. But that is a part of entrepreneurship. Most people are not going to just figure that out when they first open.
Yes. I was saying to someone the other day that entrepreneurship is really like running an experiment. And I see it even, I dare say, on a weekly basis. And that's something I really learned from the lean startup. For a week or even for a month, this is what we're going to test out. Test it, learn what's the good, keep that throughout the rest, and just keep going just like that. And so for you, if you're comfortable sharing, what have you found to be for your patient panel? Because it's different depending on everyone else's patient panel, but what are you finding that's working well for you in terms of marketing?
So my top 3 now are number 1, social media. Well, actually, number 1 is now word of mouth. Okay. But that takes time. For me, word of mouth didn't really develop until after 50 established members. That's when the word of mouth really started catching on for me. But now word of mouth is number 1. My patients referring their family, their friends, their coworkers, or their employers to sign up their business. So that's number 1 now, but that took time. Number 2 is social media for our business. Specifically, Instagram is our biggest channel that brings in members successfully, but then we also post on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. And so I do get people that will trickle in from those other channels as well, but primarily Instagram. And then the third is going to be Google, where people are Googling the best doctor in Vegas, best primary care doctor in Vegas, Black doctor in Vegas, concierge doctor in Vegas, direct primary care doctor in Vegas. We typically are the first to pop up for all of those things because we have so many 5-star reviews. And so over 60 5-star reviews at this time. And so, but that took time, right? To have our members first receive the quality of care consistently to that point where they're like, I've got to write a Google review, and then for those to accumulate. So once I figured that out, now I ask our members, when they say, oh my gosh, like our patient just came in, she was in severe pain in her shoulder. We did an injection, a shoulder injection. It's free for our members. She came right in at the time her appointment started. And, at the time her appointment was to start, she came right in, and 10 minutes later, she's out the door, and she told me her pain was gone. And she came in with 10 out of 10 pain. And so at that time, and she's like, oh my God, Dr. Jade, this is amazing. So that's the perfect time when I say, can you leave a Google review and just share your experience? And so those accumulate over time. So those are our top 3 now. But that took a little time. On the front end, I did a lot more networking. I still like to network in very specific rooms where I know my ideal member will be, like at a lot of like women's conferences I speak at, or women's entrepreneur meet and greets, very specific ones I will go to now where I know my ideal client is in the room. But that took time to figure out who exactly my ideal client was as well. That took some time. I had an avatar in mind, but then when you actually serve them, that helps you to fine tune who the right fit for your practice and your personality really is. So, but when I first started, my networking was a little more broad, a little more general. So I did things like BNI or or the local chamber of commerce. So I did more of those on the early end. And then once I honed in on who my ideal client was, now I specifically do networking where I know she's in the room. Not that I only serve a she, but she's in the room,
But
Yeah.
majority at least. Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. So what are you envisioning? What is the future for with what you're comfortable sharing? What is the future for Inspire Primary Care?
Yeah. And what I love about this is it may look totally different than what I'm about to say, right? Because I was listening back to an interview I had when I first opened on my DPC story. And I thought I was asked this question and I was like, oh, wow, that's nothing like what I wanted to look like now, right? At that time, I had said I wanted to stay a one physician office. So we call that a micro practice. I said I wanted it to just be like automations, no team, just me and my practice, and that's it, right? And now I know that team is really important because as you serve so many people, and you can totally choose to keep it a micro practice, but for what I desire now, I really desire a team that all works together to serve our members and to multiply and duplicate that. So in this season, I am really focused on one, we've hired our first full-time employee. She's amazing. I hired her from our urgent care that I used to moonlight at, and she's our practice assistant, and that's been amazing. My husband is on the operations side, so he processes payroll. Again, his role is growing as our team is growing. Now we're in the process of thinking about how we need to structure things to bring on another provider, physician, whether that's a physician, a physician's assistant, nurse practitioner. We're looking for the right fit for Team Inspire. So I'm looking forward to that. So when I take vacations, I can truly be off and my patients can be covered. I don't have to say, just go to urgent care this week, and vice versa. They can go on vacation and I can cover for them, like really having that team aspect and the team culture. I'm looking forward to that. We're creating our standard operating procedures now. Really making it a company with company culture. And we see having multiple locations, maybe being in multiple states or other parts of the city or of the, yeah, definitely of the city or of the state. So we're open to those things, but first we're looking at how to duplicate me. And how to also duplicate our assistant so that she is more so managing the other assistants that we'll bring on to help the other providers. So we're looking to build Team Inspire. If you're in Las Vegas and you're looking at this and you think you're a good fit, definitely reach out because that's what we're positioning ourselves for at this time.
Amazing, amazing. Um, this is so good. And so if you could go back in time, let's say maybe 3, 4 years, and you were speaking to another young doctor, or maybe even earlier, what advice would you give them? What now looking at your journey and it continues to expand, you're continuing to grow. What would you say to them? What advice, what encouragement would you leave with them?
Yeah, I think when I first opened, I was just so on fire about direct primary care and membership, non-insurance based, and being able to provide this amazing quality of care. I think I was so on fire for that, where I was just like, why isn't everybody doing this? Why isn't everybody opening this type of practice? I was looking at my residency colleagues. I was the only one who was opening their own business. Everyone else was, signing up for their employee position. And I'm like, they're thinking I'm crazy and I'm thinking they're crazy, right? And so I think there was that bit of naive or green components in that point that now I can look back and say, are you called to do this? You should really look at what are you called to do? If you're called to open a business, then have the mindset where you're called to do it. And regardless of the hard times, stick to what you're called to do. Now, that doesn't mean don't have a strategy and structure and get a side job if you need one and all those things. But you have to go back to the why. You have to go back to your calling, whether you're going to go employed or whether you're going to go self-employed, right? But this is not easy. And I think on that front end, I was very much like, this is amazing. All you do is start a website and open the business, but there's a lot that goes into it. And every level has new challenges and triumphs, every single level. And entrepreneurship is just a totally different beast. It really is. Now, I love it and I'm made for it. I'm built for it. It's the type of stress I'm built to handle. I'm not built to handle the employed type of stress, okay? It's just important to know yourself and to know what are you meant and called to do? How are you called to serve? And then that way you'll be able to weather the storms and reevaluate and pivot and all the ups and downs of the journey. You'll be able to ride it out because you know your why and you know what you're called to do. So I think that's more of where I'm at now, is where I'm not just telling everybody like, yes, open that practice. I'm more at a point where I'm like, well, if that's what you're called to do it. But if you're called to join and establish direct primary care practice because you love the model, but you don't really want to do the business part, consider that. Or if you love being an employed position in an employed physician position, but you have other things you like to do on the side for your hobbies and you know, for a side job, then do that. You know, it's not a one size fit all, and there's not that one is better than the other.
I love this. Retweet everything. Completely agree. This is amazing. And I hope that for everyone who's listening, I hope you've learned something, whether it's something just about your calling. I have always said it, medicine is a calling. I think it's too much work, to be honest, just for a paycheck. And I believe entrepreneurship is also a calling. So whatever that looks like, you know, for different people, whatever it is that you're called to, I really love that. Focus in on that and just focus on fulfilling whatever you're called to do, whatever your purpose is, whatever destiny God has in store for you. Dr. Jade, thank you. This is incredible. Just know you have a fan in the DMV.
Oh,
I am
a
rooting.
friend, a friend.
No, this is incredible. I love it. And I'll be honest, I have moments where I'm like, sometimes I'm like, wow, like I have these big dreams and big goals and this and that. But I'll be honest, because I've followed your story, I have the times when I really do look back and I remember, no, she's done it, so I can do it too. And so just know that you are indeed fulfilling your calling. You know, in the moments when I've had, you know, questions, yes, you're a text away, but even just being able to remember that someone has gone ahead of me and they have been able to do it right from residency, that's been enough of a push in the moments when I've had, and it's like, okay, you had your 1 minute, come on, let's get back on course. We're going to keep pushing and keep going. And by the grace of God, it's paying off. And so I appreciate you for that. I appreciate your story, and keep going is what I will say. I pray that God continues to give you grace, just more and more grace.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it really is about what you're called to do. There's no easy journey, but there are so many amazing and rewarding things along this journey. And yeah, it doesn't stop getting hard in different ways, but it also doesn't stop being rewarding. So, you know, balancing that and positivity for us, faith is very important. And thank you for sharing that. I've been inspired by so many people ahead of me. And so I definitely always want to do that for those who are behind me too.
Yeah, my pleasure. For everyone who's listening, Dr. Jade is on social media platforms. Let me actually turn it over to you. If you could let people know how they can connect with you, especially if you're based in the Las Vegas area and you need to have a primary care provider, please make sure you reach out and get in touch with Dr. Jade. If you're interested in the DPC model, or if you're looking for a job, right, as you guys are continuing to expand. So let me turn it over to you, please.
Yes, thank you so much. So you can find us on Instagram as our primary social media platform. So definitely on Instagram, my personal Instagram page is Dr. Jade MD. So DrJademD. I would love to have you a part of the fam there. I'm sharing all the behind the scenes on how I'm balancing business, wellness, and motherhood and all the things there. And then our practice page is at Inspire Primary Care with no I am in the front. So at Inspire Primary Care for the practice page, and inspireprimarycare.com, no I in front of Inspire. That's a great way to reach us too and learn about our services. There's a contact page at the website that comes to my email. So if you'd want to reach out by email, that's a great way to reach me. So I would love to connect with you all. And thank you so, so much for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you again.